What if strong leadership is not choosing between high standards and healthy people, but what if it's learning how to build both at the same time? I have found over the years that leadership is not just about driving results, it's about developing people while pursuing. All right, come on, let's go ahead and get this conversation started. Welcome to Transformation Station Leadership Podcast, where we explore the mindset and resilience and intentional leadership practices that help leaders like you and me to grow, lead with purpose, and create meaningful impact. I'm your host, Adrienne Benson, and today's conversation, it's about one of the greatest tensions that leaders like us navigate. We're talking about how to build strong, high-performing teams without losing the human side of leadership in the process. I'm super excited because we have an amazing guest today. And with Christine, who I'll tell you about in a moment, we're going to explore what it really means to lead in a way that develops people while still maintaining the excellence and accountability that you and I are accustomed to. Before we meet our guests and dive into the conversation, I want to remind you of a few things. Number one, I want to remind you that every month we have our Lead Her Shift webinar. Our next one is coming up on June 21st. We have Dr. Melanie Gray that is going to join us, and we're going to talk about how to stop the overwork cycle. I know that this is a very relevant conversation, so I want you to go ahead and click the link that you're going to see in the description box, or you can just go to mobilizingwithimpact.com, go to the event tab. You'll find the Zoom link there. We want to go ahead and fill the room, so I need you to go ahead and make sure that you invite at least 2 other leaders in your community to join us. I also want to remind you and invite you to be sure to join us every Monday and Wednesday on Transformation Station Leadership Podcast. You know, this is where we're able to have leadership, resilient, service, growth, transformation conversations with professionals, executives, coaches, entrepreneurs, and change makers like yourself. If you missed this episode with Dr. Jacqueline Campbell, The Burden of Leadership, I need you to go back to YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn. Go back and you need to watch the replay, and or you can listen to it. You can listen to it on Buzzsprout and Apple Podcasts and Spotify. I mean, come on. Matter of fact, wherever you find or you prefer to listen to your podcast, because we know the community that learns together grows together. Well, today I'm excited because we have Christine Valdes with us. Christine Valdes' leadership philosophy was shaped long before executive titles and boardroom conversations. She began her career earning minimum wage, learning early the importance of resilience and responsibility and consistency. And over the past 3 decades, she worked her way into senior leadership, developing hundreds of professionals and leading large, geographically diverse teams in high accountability environments. And it is my honor to welcome to Transformation Station, Christine. We're honored to have you with us today. Welcome to Transformation Station Leadership Podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. I'm actually excited to join that June 21st class that you have with Dr. Melanie. I definitely am going to join that also.
So glad to hear that. Woo, wonderful, wonderful. So listen, as I was preparing for this episode with you today, you know, the title alone had me thinking about a lot. Some of the things that I was thinking about is that many of us as leaders, we unintentionally separate performance from people development. We cause those two things, many times leaders, to be in two different categories. And some of us focus so heavily on results that the relationship of our teams with our teams, it suffers. While on the other hand, there are some that avoid accountability in an effort to protect our people from discomfort. So I want to ask you this question. Let's start off this way. Why do some leaders believe that they have to choose between caring for people and maintaining high standards?
You know, it's a really good question because I think earlier in my career, I was trying to I was trying to figure out like the balance between the two, right?
Mhm.
Because honestly, I think it comes from how most of us were trained, right? We came up in environments where leadership was measured on output, on what
Mm,
we produced. Did we hit the number? Did we hit the metric? And close, and did we close the quarter out the way we were supposed to? Did our people hit the numbers they were supposed to hit? And somewhere
mhm,
in that training, whether it was from my first manager or whether it was in school, I think we realized that, or we thought that the emotions part were a liability, and
mm,
caring too much would cost your results,
mm.
right? Like if you cared too much, then people would think, oh, you're friends and they don't have to work as hard, right? And so we internalize this false choice. You can either be liked or be effective. You can either care for people or hold them accountable. It was one or the other. And early in my career, I had this balance. I was trying to care too much because I wanted to be more like me, but then
Mhm.
at the same time, I felt like I wasn't being a strong enough leader. But
Mm.
now that I've led teams for a long, long, long time, decades, and now I lead large teams, I can tell you from experience that leaders who get the most sustained performance out of their people are not the ones who keep the pressure high.
Mhm.
They're the ones that are actually working on the relationships with their people. They actually know who the people are that work for them. They know what they're carrying at home. They know, what is it professionally that really drives them, um, and what they're really trying to become. Right. So
Mhm.
for the people that I manage, I know that this person is aspiring to do this. I know this person is trying to refinance their house. This person is trying to pay off their house completely, pay off the full mortgage.
Yes.
And so high standards and high care are really not opposites of each other, like how I used to think early in my career. They're
Mm,
actually partners together. And the
mm.
best leaders understand that. Right. And the moment that you separate it, you get one of two things. You either get a team that burns out trying to please the leader, um,
Yes.
right? Or you get a team that checks out because they don't feel seen, right?
Mm.
So neither of those is winning. I've been on a team where I felt like I was always really trying to please the leader, and I was just working, working, working so hard, and it was never enough. And that's not a really good environment to really push the high performance. So I try to lead with an open hand, and that phrase to me means something specific to me. It means I'm not squeezing people into the shape that I need them to be for the numbers.
Mhm.
I'm holding them loosely with intention and direction. So I give them direction. Okay, so they misstep, that's fine. It's a
Mhm.
learning for them. That's great.
Yes.
Let's move on to the next step. And I learned this. It was probably like my fifth leader that I had, and I learned it from him. I did something wrong, and it was the first time a leader didn't actually get mad at me for
Mhm.
doing something wrong or reprimand me. They said, "Hey, that's fine. Everyone makes mistakes. Okay,
Yeah.
how are we going to work this to work out of this, right?"
Mm.
And so that helped me work even harder for him because I felt safe in that environment. So yeah,
Yes.
it's both. It's together.
Absolutely. I love it. Here at Transformation Station, we invite our viewers and listeners to always stop and assess what is being discussed. And, leaders, this is a great place to stop and assess. One of the things that I heard Christine say was the truth is that our people perform best when expectations and support exist. You said the words, it's a win-win.
Hmm.
Leaders, it's a win-win to have
Hmm.
accountability and to have support. I love the illustration that you gave us, or the example that you gave us, where you talked about how you know what's going on with your people, right? You know who is trying to buy their home, you know who is, trying to go to school, you know who, like, these things, right? And knowledge is power, because that also helps us to be aware in the day-to-day interactions, that helps us to be aware as far as knowing how to motivate or inspire, and also
Hmm.
when to go back and just step back and give people some space to just be, right? So leaders, where are you right now on the spectrum of expectations and support? In your workplace with your team, does it coexist, or are there two different categories and it's very clear, right? Because we talk about best practices, we want to remind ourselves that we are to communicate expectations clearly while consistently reinforcing support and development. So leaders, I need you right now to go ahead and take out your notes. take this down, put it in your iPad, wherever you are taking your notes. We need to communicate expectations clearly and often while consistently reinforcing support and development. So Christine, let me ask you this question. What does leadership that builds people actually look like in practice?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. Because I think a lot of leaders here build people and they think, oh, let's do a retreat, let's do our quarterly check-ins, let's do our annual year-end reviews. And that's not what I mean. For me, it starts with a belief shift, right? So I have a title, and other leaders have a title, but my title isn't my leadership. My calling to steward the people under is my leadership. So these are two very different postures. A title says I'm in charge, but stewardship says I'm responsible for what happens to the people in my care. When you
Mm,
lead from stewardship instead of authority, everything about how you show up changes, right? So practically it looks like this. So public praise, private feedback, right? And I'll admit, I try to do this all the time. It's not perfect. Sometimes
right.
you're rushing to get information, you're rushing to get from one meeting to another, and it doesn't always happen this way, but the goal is always public praise and private feedback, right? Always. Most leaders do it backwards, right? They
Mm,
correct people in front of the team. They
mm,
only give encouragement in private. And that's backwards because recognizing people really puffs them up. And if you correct them privately with care, it actually goes farther.
mm,
And so it also looks like like asking real questions, rather than, how are your numbers looking? But what's one thing that I could do to help you? I
mm,
mean, I know it's a weird question. I mean, sometimes it comes across like, okay, hey, you're doing this. They're telling me that something that they want to put in place. And I was like, great, that's a great idea. How do you want me to help? Or where can I help you there? Right. It can sound like that as well. It looks like noticing when someone is quiet in a meeting and they're like normally not quiet, right? And coming up to
right.
them after the meeting and saying, hey, what's up? Everything okay? You good? You good? Like, right?
Mhm,
And I've done it where people are like, yeah, yeah, I'm good. And I've done it where people all of a sudden just break down crying. So really noticing those changes in your people, that's the stewardship.
mm,
And every interaction I have with my folks, I treat it as an opportunity.
mm,
It's not really to impress anyone. I'm not trying to demonstrate my authority, but it's really to deposit what I can into those people every interaction I have. Because I don't have a lot of, when you get a bigger and bigger team, right?
correct.
My team's close to 100. It's hard
Yeah.
to get that
Mm,
time with them. And so
yes.
every time you see them, if you can deposit something, a word of encouragement, a real question, a piece of clarity, something that they did well, right? Something that you noticed that they did in a meeting, and you just give them a little bit and you deposit, that really builds people up. It's like not dramatic, like where you see it in the movies, but if
Mhm,
it's consistent and it's daily, that really helps build people up over time, and it
mm.
compounds, and that investment really helps the team overall.
It's those little moments. It's those
Hmm.
moments, right? Sometimes we would deem them to be insignificant, but they're not. And I
Yeah.
love the fact that you're inviting us to have the perspective that every interaction is an opportunity to build in some way,
Yeah.
right? Whether it's a
Yeah.
compliment, like you said, noticing something and sharing that with the individual, finding a way to be able to say, I see you.
Hmm.
And I have found over the years that when my team members believe that they are seen and heard, man, they will move heaven and earth. They will go above and beyond because they believe that they have value to you, value to the team, value to the mission, value. It's those small things that move things forward. So, leaders, you're listening right now. Christine and I are inviting you to go ahead in the chat and tell us what is resonating with you. Tell us, what have you seen in your own leadership journey? What practices do you utilize? Put it in the chat because we learn from each other.
Hmm.
Christine, how can leaders maintain high standards without creating fear, burnout, or unhealthy pressure?
Um, you know, I- it's that's a really, really good question because you want to always have the high standards, right? I want to say this first because I think it reframes the whole question.
Mm-hmm.
Most pressure in organizations is not actually about the standard. It's about the unpredictability. It's about leaders who move the goalposts all the times. It's about the teams that don't know where they stand until something goes wrong. It's about when environments where the rules are unclear and it changes and the mood of the leader changes and you don't know if the leader is going to flip out or not, right? So it's really about that. It's not the standard. It's just it's unpredictable. I know that I've been in organizations where this is the goal and I'm a leader who leads people and my leader's telling me one thing and then all of a sudden my leader's changing what they're
Yes.
asking and then I'm having to go back to my people and change it. And people, people that unpredictability does not create a safe environment for people, right? Like you said. People can handle high expectations. I think most people can handle the high expectations. They are more resilient than you think. But what they can't handle is not knowing if they're safe,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And not knowing like if this guy's going to flip out and say something wrong. And so you're constantly in this panic mode, right? Of, okay, am I doing this right? Am I doing this wrong? So for me, the answer of maintaining high standards without burning out people is clarity. I think you said it earlier.
Mm-hmm.
This radical, generous clarity all the time. We're not perfect with clarity. We try. You have to be. You try and try and try. But if you can be as clear as possible and tell exactly your team what you expect, exactly what success looks like,
Mm-hmm.
that goes a long way. So I know for myself, the clarity and the things that I do. I also have a decision filter that I use as well for that
Mm-hmm.
clarity. So if I have to make a decision, I don't make it out of fear or urgency. I really try to make a decision. If I'm in a state of emotion or stress, I really don't make a decision when I'm in that state. Like if I get a really crappy email, I am not, and it really makes me mad.
Yes.
I am gonna walk away first
Yes.
versus versus like answering it. So I really try to make decisions. I don't make decisions based on emotion, based on fear, urgency, or comparison. Because I think earlier in my career, I would also make decisions based on, well, what is she doing or what is he doing? Right. And so, because, what I try to do is I try to make those decisions based on my values. So that helps me in creating I know that the decisions I'm making is actually value-based decisions that are based on me wanting to steward the people that I'm leading. And so that helps me bring clarity to the communication that I have because I know the decisions that I'm making are based on what I believe. So,
I
yeah.
love it. I love it. You stepped all over my toes a little bit, and I said, took me down memory lane for a few things, right? I had a mentor one time who was saying, I don't know if you heard of the acronym for HALT.
Mhm.
Um, don't make major decisions or don't respond to things if you're hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
then I had another mentor, a colleague actually, who said to me, and we were having a conversation one day about emails that trigger,
Oh,
the
yes.
fact that when you're reading an email, you don't have the opportunity to see the person, to hear their voice. Some of those nuances are lost. And
Mhm.
so sometimes you read an email and you're reading it from your filter, like, what what they say? You like that.
Yeah,
Sometimes you pick
exactly.
up a tone that is there, or sometimes really is not there. It's just
Yeah.
how you're reading it. And I had a colleague who said, if you get an email that triggers you, do not answer it
Don't
right
answer.
away.
Mhm.
And that has saved me so many times. So many times I've let's say, let me walk away, and then come back, and then I reread. I'm like, oh,
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah.
That thought was not what they were really saying, or
Yeah.
what clarity. And so, Christine and I invite you to take in this best practice, which says clarify priorities, timelines, and expectations while checking in consistently with your team. And if you find that you are triggered on something, just halt, because you want healthy accountability, healthy growth, healthy ownership, healthy community and communication within your team. So Christine, what role does trust play in building high performing teams? Many of the leaders that are here within our community are high C-suite. They're high performers, they're driven. So what role does trust play in building high-performing teams?
Well, trust is the foundation, right?
Mm,
Everything else is just furniture in the room.
nice.
You can have the best strategy, you can have the best product, you have the smartest
Mm,
people on your team, but if there's
mm,
no trust in the room, none of it performs the way it should.
mm,
Ideas don't get shared.
mhm,
Problems stay hidden until they become a crisis, right? You're like, why
mhm,
didn't anybody tell me? Because they didn't trust to say anything, right? People are working at optimizing, looking good in front of the boss,
mhm,
worrying about everything else, instead of actually doing the work. And so I
mhm.
think some leaders underestimate how quickly trust can be built and how quickly it can be broken.
Yes,
Right.
yes,
So trust isn't built in big moments. It isn't built like you have one big meeting and a big like, whoa, yay, we're together. It's built in those, like I said earlier, in those small, consistent ones. It's built
yes.
every time you do what you say you're gonna do. When you take accountability if something goes wrong, like as a leader, I think that was the hardest thing. It's like you do something wrong and you don't see leaders say, hey, it was my fault. I don't see that often. I actually don't.
Mhm,
Um, and when I do, I'm like, wow, that person is taking ownership. And so for me, I try to say, okay, it's my fault. And that area actually carries more because when you take accountability when something goes wrong, instead of deflecting, um, you give credit publicly about absorbing criticism privately, right? So you're actually showing people, hey, I own it. I'm going to fix it. I'm your leader, right? And so that builds trust with folks. So
mhm,
I know that early in my sales career, I had this. I was in pharmaceutical sales. I've been in pharmaceuticals a long, long time, but I was a sales rep when I first started. And I remember I had this provider. I would go to his office and he would not see me. Like
mhm,
there's many doctors that don't see salespeople, right? And I remember he wouldn't see me at all. And I consistently showed up every single week, hoping that he would see me. I would talk to the receptionist and I would treat her like she was the physician and I would tell her about my product and I would tell her about everything, but I would treat her genuinely and kind. And the purpose of me being there was really to educate him on the product and how it could help his patients.
mhm,
And after about a year, that door opened, right? And once it opened, it stayed open because I had been there. I was so consistent in what I did and how I showed up, right? I wasn't trying to push down this message. I was really trying to provide the value.
yes.
Because and when that door opened up, it stayed open because I had already built that trust with the office staff. And the doctor would actually sit when I would talk to the staff, he'd sit in the back. Like I
Mhm,
couldn't see him, but I knew he was back there and he would listen to me. But the trust in it had been built. He knew I was there to provide value. He knew I was there to really help him in his practice and help his patients. It wasn't really about me. So
mhm,
when you have a team, it's almost the same thing. It's like building those little pieces, those little things, taking ownership when you do something wrong, actually, you know, like I said earlier, giving those compliments, those one-offs when you see them, depositing those
mhm.
things every single time, that builds trust pretty quickly with a team.
Yes, I
So,
love it.
yeah, I would say that's the biggest thing.
That's fantastic. Listeners and viewers, we're asking you right now, what role does trust play in how you build your team? Again, I'm inviting you to share right now in the comments. And if you're driving, if you're moving about and you can't share right now, I need you to go ahead when you have a moment and come back to the chat because we want to grow as a community, and or find your way over to mobilizingwithimpact.com and share there so we can keep the conversation going. Christine, I'm really curious about this. So how can we give difficult feedback in a way that still builds confidence and growth? Let me just say this.
Mm,
Sometimes the filter is not always there. Some of us really struggle with
yeah.
with being gracious and kind, right? Or tactful, rather, being tactful. But how can we as leaders give difficult feedback in a way that still builds?
That still builds people up. Yeah, that was a hard thing for me too, because it was very uncomfortable for me to give hard feedback when I was first a leader, because it was awkward. It was so awkward for me to give feedback. Like I felt like I was being mean, but then at the same time, it came across really mean because I was trying to be serious. Um, First of all, giving feedback like that takes practice, number one. It's
Mm-hmm.
not, I don't think it's easy for anybody unless you've done it a couple of times, right? You have to, with practice, it becomes easier to do. The second
Mm-hmm.
thing is you have to come from a stance of, I'm giving you this feedback because I want the best for you. If you're
Yes.
coming from a stance of, I'm giving you this feedback because you suck, you're not doing your job. And if
Yeah.
that's your positioning, that's how it's going to come across. So you have
Yeah.
to check your stance. So my stance is always, I'm giving you this feedback because I care about you. I see the potential in you. I see how great you can be, how great
Mm-hmm.
you can, right? I was put in this position to steward you, to make you the best person, the best salesperson, the best manager you can be. And I see this potential. That's why I'm giving you this feedback. So when I'm
Mm-hmm.
coming from that stance, the feedback becomes easier to give. So, for
Mm-hmm.
example, I had this representative that reported to me, wasn't fulfilling his job requirements. So I sat down with him. I remember we worked together. We sat down. We were somehow, I'm always in a Starbucks, I'm always in a coffee shop giving these because I'm always on the road. And I sat down and I said, hey, let's take a look at some of your numbers. Let's take a look at what you've been doing. So, and I just, first of all, that here's the third thing, you want to understand. So the third thing is you really want to understand before you give the feedback, really understand, what's been happening. Because if you don't understand and you're giving the feedback, they may be saying, whoa, 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 I didn't, that's not what I meant, or that's not what I was doing. So you have to understand. So I always try to go into the conversation. So let me just understand what's going on here. Okay, great. And then I lay out the standards. So for him, I was like, okay, let me understand this. I go, well, the standards are this. These are
Yes.
the numbers that we have to hit, and the reason why you're in sales is because of this. And unfortunately, I said, this isn't the first conversation we've had about this.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I said, I don't want to move into the next stage,
Still with.
yeah, with you because of this performance issue.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know you're better than this, right?
Mm.
So it comes across like it's just what happened is the stance changed. I understood where that person was coming from, and I just, the more I did it, the easier it became. But
Yeah.
I think if you haven't done it before, make sure you understand. If you're giving feedback, you understand what is happening. And number two, if you haven't done it before, change your stance. Because if you
Yes.
come in it with that stance, it's just easier to have that conversation.
And I love part of what I feel like this conversation is doing is for the leaders who may be hesitant, who haven't done it before, right? This is an invitation to be courageous and
Mhm.
just do it. You got to start somewhere, put into practice, right? You have that vision. You say, I want to be a leader that provides healthy feedback so I can just develop stronger leaders. Let me start. You start, and you'll
Mhm.
start to find that balance for yourself. You'll start to understand how to read the room, how to read the individual, how to read the situation. You'll start to put into practice listening. When you were talking, I was thinking about that phrase that says, we seek to understand before
Mhm.
we seek to be understood. That's a
Mhm.
mantra that I have for years. I try to lean and stand on. Let me understand. Let me ask questions. Let me be quiet and listen before I tell what I think and what I believe or what I want to happen. Let me understand and read. And there's so much value in that. And so, leaders, we have a best practice for you that says balance direct feedback. That means don't shy away from what the situation or the issue is. Hit it directly, but balance it with specific guidance and encouragement, right? Christine talked to us about opportunities to build and to grow our people. So
Mhm.
there's a formula: direct feedback, specific guidance, encouragement for the purpose of improvement. Christine, as we turn the corner on this conversation, I feel like this is a master class right here. We're gonna have to have Seriously. As we turn the corner here, what is one mindset shift that leaders can make immediately to lead more effectively without lowering standards?
I would say stop trying to be the leader with a title.
Mm,
Because I think when I first became a leader, I was really prideful about my title.
mm,
And I'd say, I'm a blah, blah, blah manager. I'm a blah, blah, blah manager. It was like I lived, like my pride was so tied into that title. And it was harder for me to lead because I was leading from the title versus
I
from the
see.
stance of being that leader who's stewarding people, right?
Yes.
Because
Yes.
that shift for me, from authority to stewardship, because title is authority, and then,
Yes.
and the leadership is for me is stewardship. It changes how you walk into the room. It changes how you open up a meeting, how you
Mm,
deliver feedback, how you handle tough conversations, how you respond to someone when your team makes a mistake, right? It just changes your again, that stance.
yes.
Because when you see leadership as authority, you're always managing the gap between where you want people to be and where
Mhm.
they are. The gap
Yes.
feels threatening, right? So you push harder and you push harder and you put more pressure on, and the people feel it, and they either shut down or they
Mm,
comply without really buying in.
mercy.
Right. Yeah. They're like, okay, we'll do it. Whatever. Okay, we'll do it. We'll do whatever you want us to do. Right.
Mm,
That's the comment.
mhm.
Um, but when you see your team as people who you've been entrusted with, like I see my team as people God has put in my care for this season,
Mhm.
then I treat them differently. I
Yes.
ask better questions. I listen more than I talk. I become more curious about what's blocking them instead of frustrated when they don't, they're not hitting their numbers. And
Mm,
here's what I know that's true. The results are better when
yes.
I come from that stance.
Yes. I love
I
it.
mean, I would say my first probably like 3 years as a leader, I was not good. I was really not good. I would say I was like, why did it take 3 years for me to figure it out? It's because I was sitting in that title, and
Mm,
I was like, I was in this title, and this was me as a person,
mhm,
and here is the title, and I said, okay, I'm in the title, so I'm going to act like the title
mhm,
versus acting like me. And the
mhm,
reason why I got the job was because of me, not
mm,
because of the
because of that.
person I was acting like in the title, right?
Mm,
You guys have to remember that you don't
mhm.
become, you're the title, but that's not who you are. That you're this
Mercy.
person that's the reason why people wanted you in that role, right?
Mhm,
And
mm,
so leadership starts long before anyone gives you the title. It
mhm,
started
mhm,
long before that, when you were this just an individual contributor, and it honestly lasts long after the title as well.
mhm. I
So,
think that's a perfect place to
mhm.
end right there. Leaders, I need to know, we need to know what's resonating with you. We want to hear from you. I love the fact that Christine allowed us to end with the contemplation of the fact that our leadership is not tied to the title. Our leadership began before we received that title, before you got the job, you're in the position that you're
Mhm.
in, and your leadership continues when this season is over, when this particular employment or ownership ends. Everything has a beginning and an end, but who you are as a leader, that continues. Christine, what an amazing conversation we've had today. I want to thank you so much for sowing so much value into our community. I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that this conversation resonated, and there are leaders that want to know more, they want to hear more from you, tap into whatever resources you may have. What's the best way to do that?
Well, I do have a website, ChristineValdez.com. I
Mhm.
will be revamping that in the next couple of weeks. It's going to change a little bit. Or you can just connect with me on LinkedIn. And so it's easy to find me, Christine Valdez, on LinkedIn.
I love it. Fantastic. Listen, viewers, listeners, you know what we do. We love to support our guests that come. So I'm inviting you to reach out to Christine. Let her know that you saw that you heard this episode. Share with her what resonated with you today. Ask her questions. We have an expert that's here, someone who's been in leadership for a long time, because we know, again, the community that learns together grows together.
Mhm.
Christine, again, thank you so much for joining
Thank
us. It has
you.
indeed been a pleasure to have you with our community today.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. All right, well, listen, today's conversation reminds us that leadership is not simply about managing outcomes, it's about developing our people while we pursue excellence. And Christine, we can't thank her enough for sharing her insight and for reminding us that the strongest leaders are not those who lower standards or lead with fear, but it's the ones, you heard her use the word trust. It's the ones who build trust and clarity and accountability and growth all at the same time. To each of you who are listening and watching, remember this: leadership is not measured only by what your team accomplishes, but also by who your people become while working alongside you. And this episode, I know it resonated with you. So be sure to subscribe to Transformation Station Leadership Podcast. Share this conversation with two leaders in your network that you know want to build stronger people, healthier teams, and lasting impact. So until next time, stay intentional, stay grounded, and keep leading forward with clarity and with purpose.